All right, welcome back. If you're new here, what's up? Today we are going to start to see our project deliverables come together. So we're going to be creating new sheets. We're going to be working with title blocks. We're going to talk about how we can get into a family, make some changes, load that into our project without saving the family and screwing up the file forever. We're going to talk about views versus sheets, which is a super critical topic for you to understand, but it can be pretty confusing when you're working with a CAD program like this for the first time. We're going to talk about project browser organization and using subdisciplines. And then we're going to start to put our views on sheets. So we're going to talk about how to scale those views, how to crop those views, how to dive inside of those views and work on them while you're in the sheet view. And then we're going to talk about how to use scope boxes as well. And so by the end of today, you're going to have 4 sheets set up for our coffee shop electrical design. And we're going to learn some useful tools along the way. So I will see you in the model. Okay, so now that our levels are set up, let's start building out our sheet set. So you'll notice that the template that we used didn't create any sheets, right? So to do that, all you need to do is go to your project browser, right-click sheets and hit new sheet. Okay, so it's going to ask you to select a title block. The default Revit template gives you a title block from Autodesk, so this isn't too bad. We can use that for now, and we're just going to want to create the sheets that we're going to want to use in our project. So as electrical engineers, the core sheets that we're going to have is going to be your E00, your legends sheet and symbols and general notes and all things like that. Then you're going to want to have a power plan, a lighting plan, single line diagram, panel schedules. We may have some more detailed sheets. Sometimes we'll have system sheets. For this project, we're just going to do the general notes, power plan, lighting plan, and then it's so small that we can fit the single line diagram and panel schedules on one sheet. So let's just create all of those sheets now. So we'll actually start, we've done one, right? And Revit just defaulted it to be A103. So you can either edit in the title block by double clicking this. You can change it to E000. It'll automatically update the sheet over here. See, it's unnamed. So Revit is communicating the name of this sheet with the parameters inside the title block. So if I click the title block, I can also see the parameters over here in the properties window. So there's several ways that you can update this, right? So sheet name, let's just call this electrical. We want to do all caps. So electrical legends and general notes. Let's call it that. You can see that is causing issues with the title block, and this is why you want to have these things set up, right? So you want to have a title block that already has this, and you're not having to deal with these issues because these can now become annoying. To fix this, you'd have to go into the title block by double clicking the family, and then you'd need to change the size of this text. So you can do that. And again, this is all within Revit's default. So you're at 3/8 inches right now, and we want it to be a little bit smaller. So if we go down, instead of 3/8 to 3/16 inches, it'll become a little bit smaller. This is in the title block family. You can hit load into project and close. And what this does is it just updates the family that we were using in our main model. So you can hit yes, or you can actually hit no. We don't want to submit that. So load into project, overwrite the existing version, leave the parameter value so that it doesn't change what we've written here. Okay, now you can see it's a little bit smaller. We'll talk about custom title blocks here in a bit. Realistically, you're not going to be using Autodesk default, and we'll talk about how to develop a better title block for our uses. But for now, this is okay, right? We've got our first sheet set up and we've named it. Let's go over here and close out of this title block family. So it's asking if you want to save changes to the family. So essentially what this means is Revit has all of these default families stored when you install the project, right? And so if I were to hit yes on this save, it means that the file for this family would always have these changes made. Typically, at engineering firms, you most generally want to hit no on this unless you're updating all of the template settings, because what can happen is we often will make changes in the families and then load them into our project based off what we need for the project. But we don't want to save over the default, which will change it for the future for everyone that's using that family. So typically when you get this dialog that's asking if you want to save changes to a family that you've edited, you want to click no, unless you're making template updates. So, all right, we hit no, it'll close out of that. We're back to where we were. So, all right, we've got one sheet created, general notes. You can hit duplicate sheet. It'll give you a couple different options here: duplicate empty sheet, duplicate with sheet detailing. The difference here is if you have like detail lines and notes and things, if you duplicate with detailing, those will come along with it. If you just duplicate empty sheet, they won't. We're going to do empty sheet because we haven't done any detailing. And then we can go and change this. So another way you can edit this is if you double click the name of the sheet in the project browser, you can also edit it here. So let's say we want to make this E100 for the power plans, and we'll just say Control A, select all, delete power plans. That's fine. Okay. And now we can do this again. Duplicate sheet. Just do it again. Duplicate sheet. All right. This one we're going to do. Sometimes the double clicks can be a little bit finicky, as you just saw, but now we're going to do E200. Call this lighting plans. That's good. And then we'll get this last one. Double click, double click, double click, double click. You can also right click and rename if the double click's giving you problems, like it sometimes does. E300, single line diagram and panel schedules. Okay, cool. So we've got our sheets set up. So it's really important to remember, like if you're familiar with AutoCAD, this is basically the same thing in Revit, where we're in paper space, as you would call it in AutoCAD, and in views, we would be in model space. But if you're not familiar with AutoCAD, this is a really key thing to understand about these programs, is that, you know, we're delivering a set of construction documents, right? Which used to be pieces of paper that the contractor would go and they'd look through all these pieces of paper on the site. Now it's almost always PDFs, right? Sometimes they'll print them out, but what we're doing is we're creating, you know, a document, a PDF of sheets that show all of the information that we need to show, right? And so that's all that this is in Revit is, you know, it's a sheet. Our views are the information that we're pulling on to the sheet, and within the views we have a lot more customizability. Is that the word I'm looking for? We can be a lot more detailed in the views, because that's how we can look at our model and manipulate our model. How do we want to look at it? How are we going to show the information that we want to show in a 2D form and put it onto the sheet so that it can be printed off and taken to the site? Okay, so with that being said, we've got our sheets created. We'll go up to electrical views. So one of the things that's happening here is, remember when we were doing sections, it created this section here. So your sections will come up in your project browser, but it has these question marks. You want to keep your project browser as organized as you possibly can, right? Because if you just start letting every little thing pile up over here and aren't taking care of it, it's just going to become a mess. And to get into the practice of organizing this, you know, as you're learning it, is going to be so helpful. So what happened is when we created a section using Revit standard abilities, it didn't assign this to a specific subdiscipline, as Revit calls it, right? So it wasn't a lighting section, it wasn't a power section, and we were just looking at it to understand, you know, the levels. So really, I like to call this coordination and keep all my coordination views separate from my lighting and power. So to do that, you can just left click on section here. It'll bring up the properties in your properties window. You can scroll until you see subdiscipline, and then we can just type in coordination, hit enter, apply. Okay, and now you can see that we've got coordination view. So look at how nice and neat this is down here, right? Coordination, what does that mean? It's just our section, so we can see that there. Lighting, power, great. Okay, so for our E00, we will come back to that, because this is going to be where we show all these different symbols and notes and things. We'll cover that in the next video. But for now, let's set up the views associated with the other sheets. So we'll go to our power plan, right? And to do this, it's as simple as just going to the power floor plan that we want to drag over, that we created in the last video, drag that over here. Okay, and now we've got our power floor plan shown on this view, or we've got our power floor plan view shown on this sheet rather. So, all right, this looks kind of not cool, right? Just it doesn't look good. It's a small little thing on this big piece of paper. One thing I guess I should point out is you can go up here into the modify tab and hit this ruler. It'll be the measuring tool. And if you measure your sheet, it'll actually tell you if you were to print this off in the field, how big it would be. So the standard size for a sheet is 30 by 42 inches. So that's what this is telling you, 3 foot 6 inches. You can see it maybe here in this blue over top of the dimension. This is going to be the 42 inches wide, 30 inches tall sheet. And now this view is going to be to scale, right? So it's saying an 1/8 inch equals a foot. So that's how they measure it, because you take a ruler and an 1/8 inch on that ruler when you actually have this sheet printed out is going to be 1 foot, right? So we have room to make this a little bit bigger on the plan so that we don't have just the small little drawing. So what do? We can click the view and it'll now bring the properties up over here. Okay, and this stuff is grayed out again. And why is that going to be grayed out? It's because the view template is controlling it. So we can go to the view template, click that. Let's take view scale off of the template, which is another thing that we typically don't want to have in the template. So we'll hit apply, okay. And now we can adjust the view scale in our properties window. Okay, so let's say that we want to go to 1/4 inch, and this sometimes is just checking, see if it fits on here. So that looks a little bit better, but what's going on? Why is there this huge black box around my view? Well, it's because this view is not cropped and it's showing these little elevation views off to the side. So actually, this is something that Revit also created when we use that default template, these elevations, which are just, if I can click them over here in my project browser, but it's just showing an elevation view or a section view from the east side of this building, which we really don't need, and it's just bogging up our model. So I'm going to shift click, right click, delete all these elevations, and then these still exist. I want to get rid of these two. So I'll right click, select all instances, visible in view, and then just hit delete. And that's a great tool. Select all instances. We do that all the time. And that's how you become an efficient designer, is learning how to use, tools like that correctly. Okay. So now you can see that black box, which shows essentially the extent of what is inside of our view, has shrunk down to be a little bit closer. So another thing that's happening, this view title, which says the name of the view and the scale, is way off from underneath the view. Typically, we want to have that moved under the view. So if you click the view title, you can just drag it over underneath the view, and now hit escape and you're good. The one thing that always happens is people will have the view selected, and then they'll try to move the view title, and the view will move with it. So it's frustrating. You have to make sure that you're not selected on anything. You're just in your sheet, and then you click the view title, and now you can move it how you want. To make this even more complicated, something Revit does, which I wish it was different, but the way it is like, you see how this line for the view title is all the way out past our view? We typically want that to just line up underneath our view. But if I click the view title first, I can't do anything. You actually have to click the view, and then you can adjust the title by selecting this little blue bubble grip. But you have to make sure that you're in the view to select that. So click the view title first if you want to move the view title. But click the view first. Hold on, I gotta click out of the view. Click the view first if you want to adjust the length of the view title, right? Okay, so this looks to be better. Now, the only thing is, you see these grid lines, that's what these are down here, are way off of where the plan actually is. That's another thing that just doesn't look great, and we can shorten it. And we'll do that by cropping the view. So I will click on my view. I will go to properties. I will go down to this window that says extents, and then you get some options to crop view, crop region, annotation crop. So if I put on crop view, all that does is it means I am cropping the view. That's all that means. The crop is going to be cropped, but it doesn't set the crop region. That's what we have to click this button for, crop region visible. So I can click apply. And then if I double click, that will bring me in the view on the sheet, right? So now I can adjust the crop region. And I just want to point this out a little bit more is, so, right, we're in a sheet right now, right? If I hit escape, the active view is a sheet, but I can click on that view and I can move it around, but I can't do anything inside of it. If I double click, now I'm in the view. So if I hit escape after I've double clicked, you see I'm in the floor plan. And now I can make adjustments to this. If I double click outside of the boundaries of that view, so like way off to the side, double click, now I'm back in the sheet and I can move this stuff around again. So you got to be careful of where you're at. And this is something beginners struggle with in Revit is like, you know, are you inside the view or are you in the sheet? So you can also, you know, if you double click your view over here, you can always just be in the view and work in here. A lot of people, myself included, I like to work in the sheet view. So I can be, you know, I can see what's going on, how it's going to look on the sheet, and I can dive into the view and click here, but you just have to be careful of where you're placing stuff. Are you in the sheet or are you in the view? Okay, so getting back into here, let's crop this view. So I double click inside the view. The crop region is visible. So now I can take this boundary of what's going to be cropped and I can pull it in. All right, and my grid lines will come down with it. They'll extend a little bit past, but that is okay. I'll pull this up too. And then we typically want to have annotation crop turned on as well, which gives you another boundary. This doesn't really make too much of a difference now because we don't have a bunch of annotative elements out here, but it just gives you a little bit more room in case you have some annotations that are not necessarily in the view, but that you want to show without being cropped off. So it's best practice to leave annotation crop turned on if you're cropping your view. One last thing I will say while we're talking about setting up views is to cover this thing called scope boxes. So right now, Revit set this up with scope box being none, which is fine. For the small project, we probably don't really need to have a scope box. But what a scope box does is it allows you to basically predefine crop regions. And we use this, you know, all the time on bigger projects where, say, you know, this coffee shop is actually like 20 times the size. And I just want to show the left side of the coffee shop because showing the whole thing on the one sheet is going to be too small. Well, I can draw out a scope box by going to the View tab, clicking on Scope Box, and then now I can draw. So like, let's say I wanted to just show the back of house. I can draw this scope box. I can say back of house, hit escape, and then I can be, while I'm in this view, I can go back down to where all that crop stuff was, where it shows scope boxes. I can select back of house, and then it's gonna crop it down to that area, right? So we use this all the time on larger projects, but we won't use it on something this small. So sometimes other templates will have predefined scope boxes, and you just want to make sure that if you're having issues cropping stuff that you don't have any of these selected. So, all right, I've got rid of that. Now I'll have to, you know, bring my crop region back out so you can see everything. I'm just going to delete that scope box because I don't want extra crap in my model. Delete that. Okay, so now we're good. Okay, so we have created the first floor power plan. You want to make sure that you're naming your views according to what they are, because Revit's just going to name them based off of the associated level that they were created with, and that's almost never what we want to name them. So I can go there, again, there's a lot of ways to edit this name. You can double click. Sometimes that works. You got to kind of like time your clicks right if you do that. See, it's giving me problems trying to do that right now. So you could go to your view here, right click, rename, and just say first, do all caps, first floor power plan. Okay, so that's good. Okay, so now we've got our first floor power plan set up, and we'll go through that same process to set up the roof power plan, because we're going to want to have a roof shown on this as well, and do the same thing when you're creating your ceiling plans and placing those on the lighting sheet. If you're still watching this video, I hope that means that you found it helpful. And if you're looking to learn more about electrical engineering design and using Revit in the MEP industry, you can start our 3-week electrical engineering bootcamp by clicking the link in the description below, and you can get started now for free. So here at the Building Engineer Training Institute, we're engineers, we train engineers, we love MEP. And if you are interested in this industry or you're working in this industry, we would love to help you. So let us know how we can help.